So in this lecture, we are going to check out how can we develop a login system using simple if loop on Applab in code.org. So let's come on this code.org platform, and here I am going to open up this Applab. Now whenever you are developing any app, make sure that the design of your app should be very attractive so that the user can find it very interesting to work on it. Fine. So in order to get the design, in order to get a beautiful design, we can make use of this Google Images part. So I'm going to search for some login screens or on this Google Images. Let's see what all things I am going to get from this Google Images. So this is what you can type over here: sign up and sign in login screens. And now in this Google Images you will be able to see couple of good images that you guys can make use of for your login system. So let's take one of these images which are getting reflected over here in this Google Images. Okay, so how about this one? This is looking good. So let's go for this one. So what we have to do, we need to copy this image. Now how can you copy this image? You just have to right click on this image and automatically you're going to come across this beautiful cascading menu. Now from here you can hit this copy image option. Fine. Let's now come on this paint software. So this is a very beautiful software which comes by default with your Windows, right? So you can make use of it for editing the images. So I'm going to paste that copied image over here in this paint software. So for doing that, I just have to press Ctrl and V together, and automatically the copied image is going to get pasted over here like this. Fine. Now I'm going to select the required part from this image. So for the login system that I am developing right now, for that I require only this much part of this image, right? So what I am going to do, I am going to make use of this selection tool, and let's select the required part. So that's how you can select the part. Fine. Now after selecting the required part, you just have to press Ctrl and C together for copying it. So let's do that. And now I am going to open up a new paint software in which I am going to paste that copied part. So for doing that, we just have to hit Ctrl and V together, and the copied part is going to get pasted like this in this paint software. Fine. Now as you can see, some white part is getting reflected along with this copied part. So what we can do, we can reduce the size of this window like this in order to eliminate that white part. Fine. So the only thing which we are left with now is this part that we just copied from this image. Okay. Now I am going to save this part with a unique name on my desktop. So for doing that, we can make use of the shortcut key Ctrl and S. We just have to press Ctrl and S together, and automatically a dialog box like this is going to appear. Fine. Now here on the desktop, I am going to save it with a unique name. Let's make use of sign up. Okay, and let's hit the save button. So I am done with saving this image with a unique name, that is sign up, on my desktop. Now I'm going to import this image in the Applab. So for that I need to come on the design section. So right now what we are trying to do, we are trying to define a beautiful structure for a login system, right? And this is one of the ways you guys can make use of for doing the same. So I'm going to define an image button over here on this mobile simulator screen, and then let's enlarge the size of this image button in such a way that it can cover the whole screen. So that's how we can do it. Let's now come down, and here we can hit this choose button. So this is a property section, right? This is the property section, and right now it is reflecting all the properties related to this image button we have on this mobile simulator screen. So let's hit this choose button. So after that choose button is going to redirect us on this beautiful assets library. Now from this upload file button, let's upload that image we just created and saved on the desktop. So I think this is the one, right? So we can select it like this, and let's hit this open button. So the image is now going to get uploaded automatically on this Applab. See, the image is here. Now let's hit this choose button. So automatically this image is going to come like this over here on this image button. Fine. Now the only thing which is looking odd to me is these white spaces. Fine. How can we eliminate this white portion? So that's what we have to think about. For doing it, the best way is to make use of this fit image property of the image button. Let's hit this drop down. So automatically these are the 4 options we are going to come across, and from these 4 options we can go for this cover 1. So automatically the image is now going to cover the whole image button like this. Now there is one thing which is missing. This circle kind of thing is not coming properly. Fine. So for how can we make it come properly on this mobile simulator screen? We can shift this image button a little bit down like this. Okay, and then we can enlarge the height of this image button. Fine. And then we can place it again on this mobile simulator like this. So now it is perfectly fine. Okay. So there are 3 things which I am going to define now on this image button. One is the input text box for this username field. Second is again an input text box for this password named field, and a button with which I can fire a command. Fine. So let's do that. So I'm going to select this text input box from here, and let's put it over here on this image button. Let's reduce the size of this a little bit. Fine. And now as you can see, it is not looking good. Why? Because the background color of this text input box is not matching with the background color of this image. So the background color of this image in this section is white. How can we change it to white? So for doing that, we need to select this input box first, and then in this properties section we can come down, and from here we can change the background color to white by writing down this code. 6 times F you have to write down. This is the code for accessing the white color. So 6 times F, and automatically you will be able to see the background color has changed from gray to white. Fine. Now one more thing that I would like to eliminate is this border of this input box. So for eliminating that, we need to come down in the properties section of this input box, and from here we can change the border width to 0. So automatically the border will go disappear, and now it is completely invisible. So it has become a part of this image, right? So that's how you can make it look as if it is a part of the image. Now I'm going to do the same thing for this input box which I am defining over here for the password field. Let's reduce it down. Fine. So and then we need to change the background color of this to white. So 6 times F I need to write down over here. 1 2 3 4 5 6, perfectly fine. And let's eliminate now the border of this password field. So we need to come down again, and from here we need to change this border width to 0. So that's how we can do it. Okay, and let's define a button now on this image button. So for that there are two options now. If you want to make use of this button, you can do like this also, or else what you can do, you can make use of this label box and place it over here right on the top of this sign in button, right? And let's eliminate everything whatever is there inside this text field of this sign in button. Fine. So now this thing which is a part of that image we have defined in the background of this image button, on which we are defining these components, is going to behave like a button for us, right? Now I'm going to change the IDs of all the three components I have on this beautiful login screen. So the first component is this text input box. I need to change I'm changing the ID of this one to email, and I'm changing the ID of this second one to password. Okay, and I'm changing the ID of this label box I have placed on this sign in button to let's say sign in. How about sign in? Yeah, this is fine. Okay, so we are done with defining all the required components on this mobile simulator screen. Let's now come on this coding panel and define the required code for this button over here. Okay, before this I would also like to define a dashboard kind of screen. So for doing that, if you want to create a new screen, so what you can do, you can come on this design panel and just hit this drop down and go for this new screen option. When you will hit this, automatically a new screen like this is going to get created. Fine. Now let's come on this Google Images and search for a good welcome guest GIF animated image. So this is what you can type over here, and let's make use of this image. This is looking quite good, so let's make use of this. So for you just have to right click on this image, and automatically again this menu is going to appear. From here you can select this save image as option, and it is going to redirect you to one of the locations which are there on your computer. And here we can save it with this name, welcome. Let's hit the save button. Fine, so the image has got saved on the desktop. Now I am going to come back on this screen too and define an image button right on the top like this. Fine, and let's now import that welcome image we just saved on the desktop. So for doing that, we need to come in the properties section, and let's hit this choose button. So it is going to redirect us on this assets section, as you guys know, and from here I can drag and drop this welcome.gif image over here in this assets library of the Applab, and soon I think I will be able to see it uploading. Yeah, it is uploading, and we have the image right now in the Applab. Let's choose this image. Okay, so now the image is getting reflected over here on this screen too. How can we make it cover the whole screen? So for doing that, we can make use of this fit image option. Let's hit this drop down and select this second option. So now it is covering the whole mobile simulator screen, right? And let's change the dimensions of this image button so that, okay, if we'll go for this fill, yeah, this is also looking nice. Fine, so let's make it fill. Okay, now let's come on this coding panel and change the screen to screen 1. So now I'm going to define an uneven block for this sign in button over here. Let's select it and put it over here in this workspace. Now you know this on even block works as an if loop. So if this JavaScript coding that we are doing right now, it's an event driven programming. Fine. So if you want to run a set of statements, so in order to do that, you have to make sure that an event has taken place. Then only those set of statements are going to run. So now in this first drop down, I am going to select the ID of this label box which I have placed on the top of this part of the image. So the ID of this label box is sign in. So all the IDs of all the components we have on this screen 1 as well as screen 2 are going to get reflected like this over here. Fine. So we can select this sign in. Now when the user will hit this sign in button, what should happen? That's what we need to define inside this on even block. For doing that, let's make use of this if loop. Fine, I'm going to place it right inside this on even block. Okay, now if the email which the user will enter over here matches with the one which I am going to define in the coding section, and the password which he will enter over here matches with the one which I am going to define over here in this workspace, then only I would like that user to get redirected on this beautiful screen 2. Otherwise, an error message should get reflected somewhere in the bottom or in the top. Fine, so that's how I am going to code this beautiful login system. Now, in order to get the input which the user is going to make over here in these two input boxes, what I can do, we can make use of the get text property. So this get text block helps us in reading something in the form of a text from the components we have on any screen, right, in this Applab. Now get text. So the first thing that I would like to match is the email part. So the ID of this component is email, is in small. So that's how I can get the input which the user is going to make here in this input box. And if now the text which the user is going to input here, if it matches with this email ID, gaurav@gmail.com, if it matches with this email ID, and so it's a logical operator, okay, and we guys generally use it if you want to check more than 2 conditions in one go. So you guys can make use of this and logical operator. Fine. Now I am going to copy this whole thing from here and let's put it just after this and operator. Now I'm going to replace this email with the ID of this component in which the user is going to write down the password. So if the password matches with this which I am defining over here, Gaurav123, okay, then only the user should be redirected on screen 2. So how can you redirect a particular user on some other screen? The best way is to make use of this set screen block, which you can easily find in the UI controls part of the toolbox. So you need to come down and right in the bottom you will be able to find this set screen block. Let's put it over here, and you know, if this condition and if this condition will be true, then only the user will be redirected on this screen 2. So we need to change this to screen 2. Okay, and besides, you know, if you want to make this more interactive, you can definitely make use of this play speech block, and let's put it inside this if loop like this. Fine. So whatever you're going to write down over here in the text part, so this play speech block is going to convert that in the form of speech, and when the user will be redirected on this screen 2, he will be able to hear this thing in the form of speech which I am going to write down over here in between these two double inverted commas. So welcome user on screen 2. So this is what he's going to hear now in the form of speech. Fine. Now if suppose the user fails to enter the correct login credentials which I've defined over here for this input, for this login system, then I would like to see an error message getting reflected right on the top of this first input box. How can we do that? We need to come on this design section and let's define a label box right on the top over here. Fine, and let's change the text part of this text label box. So I'm changing it to invalid credentials. Okay, and if you want to change the color of this text which is getting reflected in this label box, you can come down and from this text color property you can do it very easily. So let's make use of this red color. Fine, and I need to increase the font size a little bit so that it can look more good, right? Okay, and let's increase the size of this label box also a little bit. Yeah, now it is looking fine. Okay, now let's come on the coding panel and define the code for this error label box. Let's rename this, let's rename the ID of this label box first. So I'm renaming it to error. Fine. Now when you run this app, you will be able to see this invalid credentials error getting reflected right on the top. I don't want this to happen. I want that when the user will access this app initially, this should not be visible to him, right? So how can we hide this label box? The best way is to make use of this hide element property, which you can easily find again in the UI controls section of the toolbox. So I'm going to select it and put it right on the top over here. Let's replace the ID of this error box. Let's replace the ID with the ID of this label box. Fine. Now when you'll run this app, the user will not be able to see that error message initially. Fine. Now if one of these conditions, or if both the conditions which we have defined over here are not true for any input which the user is going to make over here in these two input boxes, I would like this error message to be shown to the user instantly. So for doing that, we can define an else part for this loop. Okay, and here inside this else part, I can make use of this show element property. So this property you can find it in this UI control section just above this hide element block. Fine. So I would like to show the user this label box. Fine. Now besides, let's make it more interactive by adding this play speech block. So I'm copying it from here. Let's put it right below this show element block like this, and let's now change this text to you have entered invalid login credentials. Fine. Now I am going to run this beautiful login system and see whether this code I have defined over here is going to give us the desired output or not. So let's do one thing. Let's hit the share button and copy this whole link. I'm going to open this app on a new tab. So for that I need to paste the copied link over here in the URL part of the browser, and automatically the app is going to open up like this. Hope you guys are enjoying this lecture, right? Okay, so that invalid credentials label box is right now not visible to me. Let's write down something over here. So I am selecting this ID jangora126@gmail.com, and here let's select this password, Now if I'll hit this sign in button, let's see what is going to happen.
You have entered invalid login credentials.
Okay, so as you can see, this invalid credentials is getting reflected over here. Fine. Now if I will write down this code, which is, let's go with this email, gaurav@gmail.com, and gaurav123 is the password. So now I am going to write down this email ID over here in this first input box. Gaurav123 is the password. Fine. So now let's see whether we'll be able to go on that screen 2 or not.
Welcome user on screen 2.
Okay, so we are there on this screen 2. Fine. So that's how you can make a simple login system using this if-else loop. Fine. Hope you guys enjoyed this lecture a lot. If you guys have any query, you guys are most welcome to ask me the same. Okay. Coding in magical world. Fine. Is there any question you want to ask from me? So you guys are most welcome to use this chat box for the same. That's great if you not have any doubt, Amir. Great to hear that, dear. So do share the link of this video in your group so that more and more students can come and join these free online coding classes. Fine. Thank you very much for joining me in this session. Have a great day. Bye bye.